Well, good evening, and welcome again to the 2012fad.com. I will be your host this evening. My name is Charlie Bluehawk. Last night we talked about the letter that I wrote in response to a gentleman asking us if we were serious about what we were doing here at the 2012fad.com, and specifically if we were serious about building Technology Village, the village, with the idea of people surviving the event. And the event, of course, happens every 32,000 years like clockwork. And since the universe is the biggest timepiece we know of, I'd say, that was a good description. Technology Village, as I've been designing for the last 40 years, is designed as an above-organic, sustainable farm, an ecotourism resort, complete with conference center, hotel, nightclub, dance floor. I dance salsa because I've got to have a dance floor. Cuban-style salsa, if you don't know. And, of course, the usual touristy things, horseback riding, camping, hiking, skiing, and also as a place to have a film festival in Central Europe. So we would be a for-profit venture up until the time the event occurs, in whatever form you believe it will occur, at which point we've scoured the world for good people, for lack of a better word, tradesmen, artisans, craftsmen, thinkers, human beings, filled our libraries full of books, filled our cinema full of movies. We know how to preserve electronic equipment against the electromagnetic pulse, the planetary lightning that will be dry cleaning our Earth. And we'll be spending a lot of time relearning what it is to be human beings, learning to be human beings for the very first time, many of us. More and more reports are surfacing about the brown dwarf star, that is the natural companion of our big yellow sun, and how it is now visible with a $99 telescope you can buy at the local hardware store, even in the Northern Hemisphere. Now, we've talked before about how a binary star system is the norm in our galaxy. Every solar system we can see is a binary system, which means it has two stars, two suns. And yet, for some reason, you and I have always been taught that our little yellow star, our sun, is very unique, a single star in its own star system, us. Sadly, it's our master's lie about everything we are, who we are, where we have been, where we have come from, and where we might be going, just to have power over us. So, what's one more lie? I bring this up because tonight I thought we would chat about Australia. And to be completely honest with you, I've been trying to avoid this particular topic. What we do here at the 2012 Fad is give you what we call in the corporate world, corporate management, the 30,000-foot overview, what normal folks would call the fast food version of the events that's happening in the world, and not necessarily individual news clips. But my business partner and friend, Mr. Kenneth Slenker, insisted that I talk about Australia. And after looking into my normal sources and going back into my records, I find that yes, as usual, Kenneth is right. And so we're going to chat about Australia for a bit here tonight. Turns out Australia is proving to be the front runner on the world that's changing around us. And what really keyed it for me was it's hard to ignore how the Australian government is seizing this opportunity to lock information access down from Australians and from us in the rest of the world. A little background information. You should know to begin with that there are so many secret military bases, US and UK military bases in Australia, that there are actually more foreign military people in Australia than there are Australians. No one ever talks about this, again, of course, but, there is one ultra-secret military base, not that secret, turns out. It's called Pine Gap, and I have to admit it's my favorite. Among other things, Pine Gap is one of the entry points, the embarkation points to the vast underground network of underground cities that our masters have built for themselves. And they're all over the world. I think their last report, there were 270 of these huge cities, megatropolises, in the United States alone. And they're linked all over the world by a supersonic sub-shuttle system that crisscrosses the world. Basically, it's a big vacuum tube. And when there's no air, you can move things pretty fast down a tube. Anyway, many of our world leaders, current and foreign, have what they say their tickets. And they have their tickets for Pine Gap. This means that when the event finally breaks out in full bloom, these great leaders of humankind will all congregate, if you're in the Asia-Pacific area, at Pine Gap. They will present their tickets and be taken down tens of thousands of feet into the crust of the earth. And there they will join their masters in safety and luxury that, well, frankly, you and I just really can't even imagine. And speaking of dreams, what these great leaders of mankind have not yet figured out, and I can name quite a few, the leaders of New Zealand come to mind, they haven't quite gotten to the fact that when the event begins, they're going to be locked out of Pine Gap. They're going to be left behind with us. They're going to be left to die by their masters. Sadly, they will not figure this out until they get to Pine Gap in Australia and discover that it's not there anymore. It's more of that high-tech equipment that's 5,000 years ahead of anything you or I could even begin to understand or even imagine. So, what has this to do with the burning of, and then the flooding of, and now the shutting down of the freedom of the internet in Australia? I think it's all tied together. If you remember, we had a brief chat about HAARP, the High Atmospheric Auroral Research Project. It actually started in Alaska. It was actually built by Raytheon for the US government, and of course is now owned and controlled by the British government. And the fact that when the HAARP station in Alaska goes online, the entire North American power grid dims by 25%. There are actually satellite photographs of this. You can actually see the North American continent dim when they turn on the HAARP station in Alaska. Now, there are lots of these HAARP stations all over the world. I know the one, there's at least one in Australia. I know there's one in Cyprus, but to be honest with you, I've been trying not to pay any attention. I've been trying to focus on not this, but the event and surviving it and trying to keep as many good people alive as we possibly can and give them a reason to live. So I've actually really been trying to avoid this. If you press me for it, I could probably find the rest of the HAARP stations for you, but I don't think it'll do us any good as part of our 30,000-foot overview of the world. Now let's go back just a few months and search foreign, not USA, newspapers. Go online and do a keyword search on Australia, circle, radar. And this is a really good place to mention that you should try not to always use the same internet browsers, internet search engines. Don't always use Google. Don't always use Yahoo. Don't always use ask.com. I personally tend to use something called IXQuick, and it's spelled exactly the way it sounds, IXQUICK.com. They claim not to record my IP address. They claim not to keep a record of my searches. Whether that's true or not, I have no idea. But I did discover just a few weeks ago something that really amazed me. Was I was doing some keyword searches on IXQuick.com and got very few results. I was really stunned because I knew for a fact there had to be more sites than that available. So just for the fun of it, I switched over to Google.com, did the same keyword searches, found hundreds of websites. I can speculate on why that is. I don't really want to. It's not important. So if I may suggest, always use multiple search engines when you're doing keyword searches. So this is a good place to start. Keyword searches for Australia, circle, radar. The other thing I should probably mention is that more and more sites such as ours, but much bigger ones that have millions of hits a day, are being targeted by the masters, and people are being threatened that they will be killed, their families will be killed, their friends will be killed, their friends' families will be killed unless they stop. So if I might suggest, whenever you find really important information like this on the web, download it to your local computer. Burn it off to a CD or a DVD. Don't depend on what you find on the internet today being there tomorrow. Because more and more sites are being shut down by the simple act of the masters sending out the Mandarin class who send out their